Hey everyone, welcome to Gonzo's Things to Do. It's going to be another fun show. We have three cool guests on today. Dale Robertson from the Public Museum of Grand Rapids. Tony Baker, he's a sociology professor at Ferris State University. And my good friend, Ed Sypniewski, he is, he's an advocate for the West Side and all things Polish history here on the West Side of Grand Rapids. We're going to talk about a cool event they have taking place here at the Guest House on Monday, September 27th, about preserving the stories and the history of the West Side and the Polish history. And then that kind of leads to the big weekend events. Pulaski Days, the first full weekend of October. There's a Kielbasa eating contest. There is a parade. There's a Polish Mass, and all the fun at the halls, mainly on the west side, a couple on the east side. But anyway, let's get to talk to them and find out what's happening on Monday night and as we get ready for Pulaski Days. It's all coming up on, Gonzo's Things to Do. Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome to today's podcast. John Gonzalez here on the west side of Grand Rapids, and I'm joined by three dapper, distinguished gentlemen who know a little bit about the west side of Grand Rapids because it has so much history, and they have Pulaski Days are right around the corner, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun to just ask them about what memories and what it's all about. And they also have a special program taking place on Monday, September, help me, Ed?
27th?
27th, yes.
Monday, September 27th, a special event here. And here at the what is this called? The Guest House?
This is the Guest House.
The Guest House at next to the Copper Town.
Next to Blue Dog now.
Or Blue Dog, yeah. Sorry, showing my west side, right?
4th and Stocking.
The 4th and Stocking. So we are joined by these three gentlemen, Dale from Grand Rapids Public Museum, Tony from Ferris State University.
Yes.
First time we had a chance to meet. And then, of course, my longtime friend, Mr. Ed.
I'm just a West Side kid hanging out here.
A West Side. Ed, how do you pronounce your last name again?
Sypniewski.
Sypniewski, just like it's spelled.
And my mother was a Stepanuk, so I got it all. Just about every letter.
Hyphenate that name.
Yeah.
I went to. I'll share some of my story in a minute, my Polish history, because I am part Polish. Not really, but I feel like I am. Well, I'll tell you more about that later. But Ed, tell me really, what is going on here? Because we were on the verge of another festival, because last year was a little different with COVID and everything. But this year, what do you have planned? What's coming up? And tell us about Monday's event a little bit.
Well, of course, next weekend, the first full weekend of October is Pulaski Days. And after a little hiatus last year, everyone's back. But Dale here came to me and said, we're doing some what do you call these? A series of
stories, GR stories.
GR stories, and one was regarding the Polish halls in Grand Rapids. And so Tony, being the sociological guy that he is part of this. And your role is
you're gonna have a program basically.
We're gonna have what's gonna happen is the doors are gonna open at 6. At 6:30, we're gonna have a panel of people from East Side, West Side that represent halls, represent music, food from the halls, and we're gonna have a bunch of questions, and we're gonna let the audience ask questions about the halls and kind of pick their brain and maybe pick the brains of the people in the audience and see what comes out of this. But,
and we're going to record this, right, Dale? We're going to record this on video so people can share their stories, their memories.
Correct.
It's part of your project.
It's part of the project. So the panel will be filmed, and it will be on Facebook, the Grand Rapids Public Museum's Facebook channel, and the YouTube channel for people to watch it at any time. And it is part of a series that really Professor Tony Baker and I began to create to collect stories and put them into the archives of the Grand Rapids Public Museum, which are all going online so people can access those sources. So it's stories, it's going to be articles, it's 3D objects, we can collect them and so forth. So this is part of that series.
So Tony Baker,
yes,
from Ferris State University. Tell us a little bit more about the project.
So I'm also on the Grand Rapids School Board. Dale and I were kind of co-founders of the museum high school, and so my connection to this is as a sociology professor, teaches about community. and have struggled to find ways to tell stories of Grand Rapids communities to my students, and also just to access them for myself. I've been in Pulaski Day parades as a local elected official. I've been at Pulaski Days activities, but in terms of really learning what the role of the Polish Halls wasn't. So Dale and I, along with some others, Charles Honey,
Charles, you mean Charlie?
Charlie is a part of this project.
Awesome, great guy.
Marcel from the 49507 project from Diatribe, and basically we're trying to put together Tommy Allen from
Tommy Allen, geez, this is like a who's who.
Yeah, so it's just a group of people who are looking for ways to tell stories. Dale did a great series back during COVID with Delia Fernandez and Randall Jelks and Todd Robinson about Grand Rapids stories, Black and Latino stories. And so that was kind of an inspiration for why don't we take this on the road and tell the stories, as many stories as possible throughout the city. And as we're learning when we're looking to find ways to write stories, is that there's not a lot of information available just in the usual places. So actually Ed Kettle connected us to Ed at the Fifth Street Hall and then here, and we began this conversation. It's like, well, why don't we just get people together and talk, because that's another way to get things in the archives, is to just have a panel discussion rather than waiting for somebody to write an academic study of the neighborhood. Let's just have people from the neighborhood tell the stories, and that's how we got this evening out. And Ed has been the ambassador for us to the community, and now invites us to events at the halls and
my 65th birthday last week.
65th
I'm on
birthday.
Medicare.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna give away your age there, but anyway, yeah. So and went to it's what's really fascinating about it, and I think that this is true about the city, but for someone like for me, if it came from somewhere else, I felt I needed an invitation to go to a Polish Hall event, and now I have one. But when I get inside, I feel a part of the community, and, and it's a pretty special experience.
Yeah, again, if you're just tuning in and just listening right now, I'm John Gonzalez, and today's podcast is looking at a special program taking place on Monday, September 27th, I think we determined.
27th, yeah.
And you get a chance to check it out on Facebook as well. They'll be preserving the history and the story of the halls, not only on the west side, but on the east side as well. Dale, at the Public Museum, as president and CEO there, and you walk through that museum, you realize it hits you. I think parents that are coming through with school groups that haven't been there in a while, or maybe they went there as a kid, and then kids coming through there, you see how you chronicle the story and the history of Grand Rapids through story form. And I think that this is what the goal is here, right? That you look at the history, and maybe Tony, you're better to answer this as well. You look at how people shared history, and it was through stories. Right?
Well, John, I mean, you really nailed it here. Right?
Okay. Wow.
I mean, because the museum, we collect, right?
Yeah.
We collect objects, artifacts, specimens, but really it's the stories and the explanations from the artifacts is what brings it alive and allows us to make the connection. So for this particular project, right, we've got the Streets of Old Grand Rapids. We also have the original people of this place exhibit on the indigenous population.
Of course,
we have what we call newcomers, right, which is all that came and it's both stories of places and of folks and of various communities. So this project here really connects to those existing exhibits and allows us to really then expand on it. Even, for instance, even in newcomers, there is a small rendition of a Polish hall. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we hope to explore here is what's unique to me. I didn't grow up here either, but I did grow up in a Polish neighborhood. Here is they're all benevolent aid societies. So there's this, well, to me, this noble purpose, right, behind this, in addition to the noble purpose of creating community and keeping community and the heritage alive, but there is something else going on here, right, that if you needed help,
right, yeah,
for whatever it was, no questions asked, handled, right, that's special. I argue we want to pull that out because there's lessons for the broader community and examples for the broader community in that.
I was just at a program to honor Moralia Mali Blakely, Ortiz Blakely, and a mural project down at Sanchez, and I just sat there thinking about how our ancestors preserved the history of their countries, right? And they brought in, you know, you can argue all you want about, you know, who is American, who's not American. It doesn't, I mean, to me, I don't even want to get in that argument. But I'll tell you what, the Polish people, like the Mexican people, are so passionate about their history, right? So how did the Polish, you know, people settle here in Grand Rapids? Who knows that history?
Well, a lot of the Polish, Dutch, German, Lithuanians moved here because of the woodworking. And if you go
Furniture City,
and if you go down the railroad tracks here, that's where all the halls ended up. There was one on 2nd Street, 3rd Street, 4th Street, 11th Street. You got on the other side of Leonard, and you had the Lithuanian clubs, which are still here.
Right.
But they were all, you know, you had the Whitcomb here, American Seating. When I was a kid in school, you could hear the saws. They were 10 feet from our room, so you had the nuns screaming at you, and you had the saws going all day long for 8 hours. And that's kind of how they started. And they were created for benefits, and they were also a place where predominantly males could go and talk Polish, Lithuanian, German, whatever. Maybe
play games that were native to the areas, right?
Games, maybe have a cocktail or two,
right.
or whatever. And it was a social club too. But I remember back in the day they had something as simple as $1, $2 death benefit. You know, back in the 1920s or 30s, and you know, $2 was $2, but it was there. Or if someone needed food at their house, you know, all these places had kitchens. So if someone was down and out, and you know, you went through the 20s and 30s there were some times that were pretty tough.
Yeah.
But really, a lot of them settled here because of that. My mother grew up on 2nd Street, where the highway is now, across from OST, which was Druki Games. And showing my age, I remember the highway not being there until I was like 4 years old, 5 years old.
You are old.
I am. And my Busha raised 6 kids on her own.
Wow.
And when I went to grade school at St. Adalbert's, I would say half the kids in my class spoke fluent Polish. And so it was a cool time back in the day. And these were all Polish people that lived down here when I was a kid. And but that's kind of how all this got started, was by jobs.
Yeah. Well, Tony, I just watch you listening to his story, and that it resonates with you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, part of it is that I put myself in situations to hear people's stories, but I always think that if I'm the only one hearing the story, then something's missing. So I have to figure out a way to tell these stories. But I've been involved in immigrant communities and worked with I'm on the Hispanic Center board, and thinking of the ways that immigrants have been supported and even the discussions and political debate around immigrants today. And when, you know, Dale and I were listening to Ed's stories of his father, who was helping Lithuanian immigrants, I'm like, these are common stories. They're not stories of distinct peoples, or stories of very similar peoples. And I think that's, you know, at a different conversation, a political level, I think it's an important conversation. But in general, I just love hearing these stories, because I don't know of Whitcomb or these factors. I've read Furniture City, about the strike, but Ed brings it alive, and that's what really needs to happen is really this sense of story and the sense of connections between the sides of town that we currently have.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ed, you were saying?
I don't want to leave out the churches either.
Right.
The churches, yeah.
They actually attached themselves to the different halls.
Yeah.
You had Sacred Heart, which was Polish, and the Irish people went to St. James, the Germans went over here to St. Mary's, and the Polish were over here on the east side. St. Alphonsus was Irish. St. Isidore's was the Polish, and like St. Isidore's is involved with a hall. Sacred Heart is, St. Adalbert's is somewhat, but that was a big Catholic situation going on there too. Obviously, the Polish were pretty much Catholic, and so they actually built this church, you know, which was a lot of money way back when. So it's kind of cool.
How many halls are there still in Grand Rapids?
Well, for Pulaski Days, there's 14 clubs, and I believe 2 of them are like VFW Knights of Columbus. So I want to say a dozen. And back in the day, there was probably 20, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. There's a hall right across the street here that they're tearing down. That used to be a hall right there. The taxpayers used to be on Bridge. And there's only 3 on the east side. So most of them are over here.
Here on the west side.
Yeah.
I did a little research on the state of Michigan. It just seems like you have the Detroit area, Hamtramck, obviously, maybe a little bit in Troy for whatever reason. But it seems like it's pretty much a Detroit, Grand Rapids thing. Why is that?
I think, again, it's probably jobs. Yeah, you get Troy, and then you go up to Sterling Heights.
Sterling Heights, yes, yeah.
And, of course, Wyandotte.
Downriver, yeah.
Which to this day we still go there to polka dances at the PRCUA.
Was that more Lithuanian?
No, there's a big Polish population. The same thing. My grandparents, it was for jobs, Wyandotte Chemicals, and the steel mills and so forth. But that's Don Polski, the PLAV, PRCU, Oak Club. They're all Polish halls. They're all and then there's some of the other ones that are
right.
That were no longer there, that were really just wedding kind of things. So.
Well, Dale, I know, is from downriver, and Ed is from here in Grand Rapids. Right here. Tony, where are you from originally?
I grew up in Ohio.
Hold on, Ohio.
Southern
Ohio.
Yes.
Like whereabouts?
Hamilton, Ohio, Cincinnati, Dayton area. So
Cincinnati.
Yeah, exactly. And my people were from Kentucky. That's where they migrated from. So,
what part of Kentucky?
Richmond, Lexington, Berea, Kentucky.
Down there.
Yeah. So when I grew up in Hamilton, Ohio, everybody had a grandmother in Kentucky, and so which meant that I presume that's where the Pilgrims landed. Must have been Kentucky, because that was how common it was. But then I went to Chicago, and that's where I went to Chicago for grad school and was there for about 20 years before I came here. Came to Michigan a little over 20 years ago to teach at Ferris, and then moved into Grand Rapids.
And what have you learned about the history here? What do you love about it?
Well, first of all, that's how much work it is to learn the history. I actually fortunately got involved in the newcomers exhibit fairly early on when I first came to Grand Rapids. Chicago is the city of neighborhoods, and so I was always learning about other parts of the world by visiting neighborhoods in Chicago, and I wanted to try to find that here in Grand Rapids, and it was more difficult to find. Although I kept learning things, like the first neighborhood I lived in was Heritage Hill, and I learned things about the West Side, and although I didn't trust what I was learning about the West Side, and I got connected to the Southeast Side, and then spent a lot of time on Granville Avenue on the Southwest Side, but really trying to figure out where the stories were. And even this GR Stories project, if you go to a bookstore in Chicago, there are dozens of books on every neighborhood. In Grand Rapids, there's like 3. And I have them all, and none of them really tell much about the West Side Polish community except for Strike. So that's where I come from. So that's my connection to it. And I run with Dale.
You guys are runners.
And Dale and I have run 8 to 20 miles together, and he has a lot of stories, and I've heard them many, many times. So I've tried to divert his attention to discovering new stories.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about my story. I'm from the east side of the state as well, in a little small town called Capac, and there's not much there. My dad worked for Chrysler down in Sterling Heights area. But growing up, there was a pretty big Polish population in our little town, believe it or not. I was kind of surprised because it was either Polish or a little bit of everything, right? Mexican there as well. And one of my best friends' last name was Glembowski, right? And his dad owned a little supermarket, a little grocery store there in downtown Capac. And we called him Jolly Jim, and he was a great guy, great community member. But it turns out, befriended my dad, who didn't know a lot of English when he first came here in 1961, So my dad would go to that store and visit and buy food, and they got to know each other over the years. So I went to school with Jolly Jim's son, Scott. And Scott and I played sports together. And you can relate to this, Ed, playing in those sports games. Everyone comes out to root the local teams, right? So I would be in the game, and Scott would be on my team. And my dad would show up a little late, coming home from work at Chrysler, and Jolly Jim would show up a little late because he was busy at the grocery store. And they would sit together behind the dugout, right? And they would cheer for their sons. And as soon as they met up, they just started laughing because I'm sure they had stories back from the day. And Jolly Jim would say, or my dad would say, come on, tacos, And I'm like, why are you rooting for tacos? My name's not Tacos, And then Jolly Jim would say, no, not tacos, kielbasa. We're going to buy you kielbasa if you win. My dad's like, no, we're going to buy you tacos if you win. So there would be kielbasa and tacos back and forth. And I'm like, what a common. I mean, today you can reflect on that and go, like, how cool is that? They love their culture, their history. They shared laughs. They looked out for each other. I know Jolly Jim helped out my dad in the down times, through the strike years and everything, through the automotive downturns and everything, right? But they all looked out for each other, not only within the Polish community or within the Mexican community, within the immigrant communities together. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, we used to, the sports teams were an integral part of the communities here, because all the grade schools were still operating.
Right.
The big game was St. James, or the St. James Wolverines against the St. Albert Spartans.
Really?
In football, and it would be packed. And after the game, all the moms and dads would go to the hall and talk about it.
Right.
But, it was just another usage of the halls. I always wondered why my dad wanted to take me to the hall. I was like his free pass. He set me there with an Oh-So grape and some BMO potato chips, and he'd be up there with the guys, and I was a happy camper,
Right.
But he was always home for dinner every day, so that was good. So,
Right, that was a good thing. I love how the halls, though. You're right. The halls were a place where, for me, it was also growing up in Cape-Ac, we would go to the halls for dinners and dances. So you'd go hear the music of our culture, right? Sure. And I would imagine that's the same way it was here.
Well, we were talking just this weekend at Fifth Street. There was a birthday party, a wedding, and then the Jazz Society was there on Sunday. So all these diverse groups utilizing this place just in one weekend.
Yeah.
And they have salsa dancing there on Thursdays
Wow,
upstairs.
that's great.
And so the halls get used.
Yeah.
And I went to there's a Swiss steak dinner there tomorrow, but I went to Kosciuszko Hall Sunday for their breakfast. And St. George's has burgers on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so there's always food coming. Speaking of food, Laura, that Polish Girl Catering, you could probably smell it in here.
Oh, yeah, it smells great already.
It's getting ready for Pulaski Days. She'll be serving down at Fifth Street Hall next weekend. So,
will you have food here at the event on Monday?
Yeah, yes, we are. As a matter of fact, Laura's going to be on the panel and tell her stories, her experiences with she and her family throughout the years. And she's got a lot of stories to tell and all the food that her family has served. But we're going to have a sample afterwards. Gary from Lewandowski's is going to give a little spiel about kielbasa. And we're going to have some kielbasa, some krukaska, which is a Polish lunch meat, and some kapusta for everyone afterwards.
Well, I'm glad I mentioned food with kielbasa and tacos, but Tony, what is it about food and culture that just kind of go hand in hand?
Well, I think it is the way that we bring people together, and it's certainly great to connect it. I mean, we obviously have to go deeper. I think that what's really fascinating about it is that we're not serving that food at the museum. We're serving the food here in the neighborhood, and the people that want to be a participant and have to be here in this room to eat the food, and that is that next step that brings us to this. So, but I like your story. It reminds me in Chicago. There's this neighborhood on the southeast side of Chicago, and one of the waves of Polish immigrants and the first wave of Mexican immigrants to Chicago was in the 19-teens, who were there to break the strike. The Chicago steel mills. And so as a result, there's these great restaurants. There was one called Mexican Inn, and I used to joke that it was Polmex food because instead of Tex-Mex, it was Polmex. So it was this great Mexican food with really heavy gravies that were influenced. So it was like you only needed to eat there once a week. So, but I love that intersection, and there was because the workers, and like it was probably here with the furniture factories, the workers had to work together across these ethnic boundaries, and so it's these great stories.
Yeah, and now I know that at the museum you do have food every once in a while. Taste of Soul is so popular when it's up and running, and you understand that food is a part of the culture too.
Yeah, so food's an elixir, right? So it brings people together, and the other piece of this to me is we have these bodies, so we crave active learning, right? And food is part of that. It's a visceral experience, the visceral kind of things, which is like being in the presence of an artifact too, right? You have a visceral experience that creates the stronger hooks for future information to land on. And so you can introduce so many different things from just food. We hope at some point, our goal with this expansion project that we've got at the museum is to make food a regular part of the experience at the museum. And it'll change all the time. Maybe one day you are walking through newcomers and there's something there from the Polish halls, but going through the Native American exhibit, there'll ideally be some food there, or just various parts of the museum, just depending on, it just depends, right? You gotta come all the time, see what but because of how you integrate that to tell a story, to bring things alive, and to just make that whole experience something that you can enrich through food.
All right, well, Ed, give us your best spiel here. Tell us if we're thinking about maybe coming to Monday's event. It starts at what time again?
Doors open at 6, and the cool thing about this too is if you want to have a cocktail, you can go to Blue Dog and you can bring it over here. So get here early and socialize a little bit.
Good.
We will start the panel discussion at 6:30. Probably go for about an hour, and we want people to bring questions or stories, and then afterwards they're going to get some free food. Now, free food is always, and the reason we do it last is so they'll stay here. And the response has been pretty darn good to this point, and you can RSVP through
the public museum.
Through the public museum RSVP.
Or if you just want to walk in. I bought enough kielbasa today, I think, to cover it. Polish people always do that 20%.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, we're going to have more food, Dad. I would tell my dad, who's always around ordering food. I'm like, we got plenty of leftovers. He said, that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
My leftovers are okay. You don't want to end with just enough.
Right.
You want to have more than what you need.
And as you can smell, Laura's, I think, in process of making 14 pails of kapusta right now, so we'll definitely...
Yeah, it's hard to sit here and watch.
Yeah, you guys have a better view than me.
I'm excited because it kind of ignited me looking to the past and thinking about my busha and my mom and dad and the things like you were talking about. My dad was an attorney, and he would help the Lithuanians with their naturalization for free. And I would walk through the alleys with them over on Quarry and 11th and 12th, and it was just so cool.
Yeah.
And it's bringing all this stuff back.
Yeah, it is.
And we need to do that, and I think Monday we're going to accomplish that.
That's cool. And then Pulaski Days are right around the corner, right?
Pulaski Days, it actually starts, the golf outings is Saturday, the flag raising is Sunday at Diamond Hall outside, and then there's events all next week through next Sunday.
Yes.
And the Monday night is the academic night. And so
we're starting out with it.
The parties is the week, and then on Monday night, this is your chance to learn about what the rest of the week is about.
all
Academia.
about.
Well, the Pulaski Day Committee has embraced this.
Yeah.
And they thought it was a great idea. And who knows, maybe it can be a yearly type thing.
Maybe.
You never know.
Tony, what would make this a success, do you think?
Having, what would make it a success, first of all, hearing the stories, but I think having at least half the people here be people who don't know that much about the Polish halls. Yeah. And to have them interact and feel more comfortable engaging with the experience. I think a lot of people will participate in the drinking of Pulaski Days, but it'll be really fantastic that they know why these halls exist and the histories and the stories. And again, it's fascinating. I visited Ed's birthday party last week, and there was a group of 4 and 5 and 6-year-old girls who were learning to dance, and I was like, "This is fantastic.
Yeah.
That this is continuing. This is not some dying, nostalgic story from the West Side. This is alive. This is our city."
And we had pizza there at a Polish. All right, well, I got to take care of Salvatore. But I just didn't want to cook that day. I seriously, and I had a couple buddies. We had the same birthday, same day.
It doesn't sound like you ever have to cook.
And I said, Salvi, get me a bunch of pizzas, and it worked out great.
It worked out just great.
Everyone ate. Yes.
Yeah, that sounds great. All right, real quick, where can we get more information or watch the event, Dale?
So Grand Rapids Public Museum on our website, and the videos of the event will be up on our Facebook page and the Public Museum's YouTube channel.
Okay, great. Tony, where can you get more information about what you're doing? Does the school have a site for you, or?
No, I just wander around. I'll probably be contacting people, asking them to entertain my students someday soon. So,
Oh, good.
I'll get a hold of them. They don't need to get a hold of me.
And then how can we follow you? I mean, you're the man about the West Side here. You're everywhere.
Now that I'm so old, I'm just in the background now. But I'm on Facebook.
You are, yes.
I am, and that's typically the best way to message me, and I'll get back to you.
You will. You've gotten back to me many times.
Yes.
It's been good to connect over the years, my friend.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thanks to everyone for tuning in to today's podcast. If you want more information, of course, you can follow all of them on their social channels. I will have more information on my YouTube channel. I don't know if I'll be here or not. I'm going to try to make it just because I love hearing about the history and hearing the stories of Grand Rapids. Take care, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon.